They brought it to me because they were taught it was the right thing to do. And they were taught that there's only one right way to live life and only one right God to believe in and only one right way to be. And because of that, there is only one right way for their child to be, only one right way for their child to exist in this world. Your low self-worth ends here. Welcome to Becoming Enough, a podcast dedicated to breaking down your experience as a Black sheep and understanding how that impacts your self-worth. Your experience as a Black sheep and cycle breaker is unique, and it's time we finally started to talk about it. What is up? I have missed you so much. I've missed the podcast and sitting down and just talking and recording. Before we get into it, can we take a minute for this outfit? I am loving this. I am loving that it's turning into fall, at least here. It's getting kind of chilly already in Colorado, and so I'm able to pull out my turtlenecks, layer it on up. If you don't already know, you can watch the podcast on YouTube. I've been uploading as many episodes as I can as videos, so you can either watch them on Spotify or on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, I've still been posting tarot readings on my YouTube channel. I actually thought about the fact that if you do just listen to my podcast, you aren't able to hear those readings. Let me know if you want me to start posting a video of my tarot readings on the podcast too, or just posting an audio version of it. I can do that too, but I aim to have tarot readings every single week. So I didn't want it to clog up the podcast feed, but I also feel like they can be really valuable. And if you only listen to me on your podcast app, then it could be a great way for you to get into those readings as well. So let me know. Otherwise, I really had a main thought that I wanted to share with you. And if you have experienced like religious trauma or growing up in strict organized religion or being a different religion or spiritual belief or having no religion or spiritual belief after growing up with your family who tried to impose one on you, this episode is for you. I had this thing that re-triggered me into this whole thought, and I was watching this video of someone sharing their kind of like out there spiritual beliefs, and something that they said was that they were like, whether you agree with me or not, like I'm coming from a good place and I have good intentions and like this is what I believe, right? And I just thought that was so interesting because it took me back to being a little kid and seeing people say that either on TV or in person around my parents and how that was not accepted, right? Like having a different belief system or thought than what my parents believed, which was what the church believed, like that didn't exist. That was given no place. There was no thought attributed to someone posing a belief that wasn't co-signed by the church or what they said the Bible said, right? And for context, my parents converted into Christianity in Africa, and I remember being exposed to African Christianity. We ended up having a church in our house, but I went to plenty of other churches when I still lived in Kenya. And a lot of those churches and Christian communities were really, really beautiful. They were really generous. They were really focused around community. In Africa too, church goes from like 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m. or 8 p.m., right? There's songs and worship and shared meals, and it's like a whole day thing. But the people there were so loving, and I really remember that even though I was so young. But when I came to the US, again, even though I was young, there was a visceral difference in what church was. So where I grew up, they called it the Bible buckle of the Bible Belt, right? So they were like, we're not just part of the Bible Belt of the US. And if you don't know, the Bible Belt is like kind of the bottom part of the United States of America where there's kind of like a line, I would say, which probably has changed geographically since like the 90s and 2000s, but they called it the Bible Belt because it was a strong geographical location across the entire country that had like a high amount of churches, a high amount of Christians in like a very specific location, right? So like everything you think of when you think of like Bible thumpers is what I was raised around. So not only that, but then people said that we were the Bible buckle of the Bible Belt, and the churches that I went to were like a very Southern Baptist. So we have, my immigrant family, which is already like in Africa. Well, Okay, so let's back up even more. A few generations before being in Africa, my family's obviously from India. They immigrated to Africa. So there's already like holding on to old world Indian traditional beliefs. And a lot of these beliefs weren't ancient Indian beliefs or fully indigenous Indian beliefs. They were Indian beliefs based in colonization, based in surviving colonization, right? So you take that and then you move it to Africa. So there's already this immigrant experience of wanting to hold on to your culture, wanting to hold on to your roots and what you understand in a new country. And then in Africa, there's already this kind of anyone who's African like knows what strict African parents are like, whether they have them or not. They've seen them in the community, right? Like just this very strict way of how to be proper, how to hold yourself well, how to, be very, very clean, and like none of these things are bad, right? But there's a strictness and a lack of allowing you to be anything other than what they say is right. So there's that. Then coming from that, we're moving into the south of the US, Texas, Bible thumping, Bible buckle of the Bible Belt, Southern Baptist Christianity. Okay, so the strictness, and then again, like another set of immigrants, like my parents holding on to not only these old world Indian beliefs that they were taught by, but then they were raised in Africa. So then holding on to these other kind of strict African beliefs and then moving that to a very like conservative 90s American worldview. And obviously along with that comes a lot of like racism, a lot of like colorism, a lot of the isms are present in Christianity and still are, if not gotten worse. And so that's kind of the context of what I'm talking about and where I grew up. And maybe you relate to that, maybe you don't. But even if you don't relate to that exact experience or being raised Southern Baptist, like I feel like anyone that was raised around, strict religion knows exactly what I'm talking about with the way that they do not let you be anything other than what they tell you to be. Fast forward again to this video that I'm watching right the other day where she's saying, I'm coming from a good place. So even if you don't agree with me, like just know that I have good intentions and like I'm willing to have a conversation about it, but these are my beliefs at the end of the day and we don't have to agree. That is something that did not exist when I was growing up. And I'm realizing now how much of my black and white thinking comes from that religious upbringing and that strict fundamental mindset. So I've been doing a lot of tarot readings, right, at vending events, one-on-one sessions, and something that I've been connecting with almost all of my clients. And this is interesting because it's not something I point out in them. It's something that they're coming and telling me. And that is that they struggle with an all or nothing mindset. They all call it something different. Some people say all or nothing mindset. Some people say black or white thinking. Some people say I am an all or nothing kind of person, whatever. They all describe it in a slightly different way, but this has been coming up in all of my sessions. And so I've been thinking about this again. And something that I've been telling a lot of people is like, this is something that I know black sheep struggle with this, and I've struggled with this personally. And it's something that comes from shame. It's something that is rooted in an experience of internalized shame. And it's so interesting because in 2024, I created a free mini workbook, which is still available. I'm going to link it in the show notes because it really relates to this episode, but it's about black and white thinking, right? And I called it Bye Bye Binary Thinking. Some of you have already downloaded it and worked on it. Some of you have known about this workbook for a while now. But for those of you who haven't or might be new to my work, like I really recommend getting this workbook. It is literally free. And if you go to the homepage of my website, I've also linked a companion podcast episode to that workbook. So that is something that you can listen to and kind of learn more about black and white thinking as you work through the workbook or before you work through it, just for more context and understanding of why black sheep struggle with this. So listen to that if you're resonating with this. But it is, and so that is available. And it's so interesting that I created that because I know that black sheep struggle with this. And now I've had black sheep sitting right in front of my face telling me that they struggle with this without even really knowing what it is or knowing where it comes from, right? And so I was having this experience of watching this video, and it triggered me to think back about how much my parents instilled this black or white mindset in me. And obviously, I know that so much of what we struggle with comes from our childhoods, right? But I never linked it necessarily to my religious past. And because I realized I was an atheist when I was like 15, 16, I started studying religion and why I didn't believe in God and was always talking about this kind of thing. I didn't necessarily like sit down when I was like 25 and start to work through my religious trauma or anything, you know? But what I'm realizing now is that my like black and white thinking was so influenced by not just my parents, but they were influenced by what religion said was right and wrong. They were influenced into having an black and white all or nothing mindset inspired by religion and inspired by this idea of morality, right? So especially because so many of these Southern Baptist churches were so politically rooted. I remember a sermon where they were telling us not to vote for Obama in 2008. I remember like just so much stuff, and it's like the audacity of these people to like get up on this stage to open franchises of their church, to have gift shops and insane amounts of their own merch, and to sell all these other products and all this stuff that has nothing to do with Christianity, to rake in all this money and then to use it for hate is just mind-boggling, right? But that's all a side note. I could go on and on about that forever. Oh, God. Okay. But having that mindset instilled on my family and on my parents, like they brought it to me because they were taught it was the right thing to do. And they were taught that there's only one right way to live life and only one right God to believe in and only one right way to be. And because of that, there is only one right way for their child to be, only one right way for their child to exist in this world. And so that puts so much pressure on you. I always talk about how as black sheep, we were not given the ability to explore. We were not given the ability to try at something and to fail, whether that was a hobby or just our lives, right? And it made me realize that black and white thinking is not just something that we experience. Like, I experience it in myself as, again, it's rooted in internalized shame. It's rooted in this belief that we are not good enough. And that is why so many black sheep experience it, because whether we are explicitly told by our parents or our families, or we implicitly learn it through the situations and experiences and abuse that we go through or have gone through, we pick that up and we start to shame ourselves and tell ourselves that something's wrong with us, that something's wrong in our situation, that we don't know what we're doing, that we shouldn't trust ourselves, that we are not good enough, that something is inherently wrong for us to be treated this way, right? And so thus builds this shame story that then we start telling ourselves, and we don't let ourselves see our progress. We don't let ourselves see the nuanced experience that we have. We don't let ourselves see the nuances that exist in healthy relationships either. And we also don't have that much context for what a healthy relationship even is. So we take this feeling that we have of ourselves not being good enough, and we end up projecting that on everyone around us because we take one thing that someone did and we extrapolate that to mean that they don't care about us, that they were always going to betray us anyway, that they're not good enough either, that we're settling by being with them, or that their friendship was never honest or true. And even in the workplace, this is such an important part to talk about how black and white thinking affects you in the workplace, because your boss might tell you something and immediately you're jumping to, oh, well, they never liked me anyway. I'm not ever going to be able to last here. I need to start looking for other jobs. Like, the ability to handle conflict when you are in a black or white mindset is next to zero, because you do not believe that other people could have good intentions, because you are not offering that grace or that compassion to yourself. And it's not that you don't deserve it. It's not that they don't deserve it. It's that your mindset is telling you there is one way to be. It's either right or wrong. And if I've messed up, then I'm wrong. And again, because that entire mindset is rooted in that internalized shame, everything that you are thinking is proving that shame right. It's proving that shame story right. Or it is trying to. It is trying to say that you are not good enough, that you have always been wrong, that everything in your life is wrong, that because you are wrong, you pick bad people to have around you. And because everything with you is wrong, everything with everyone else is wrong too. And everything in your life is wrong. And, it just goes on and on and on into these thought loops where you are completely stuck and trapped instead of being able to see what is actually on the other side. So, what actually is on the other side? Because if we're talking about an black and white mindset, all or nothing thinking, how it's rooted in shame, how it keeps us trapped, what is the goal? What are we trying to get to, right? And this is really the idea of a growth versus fixed mindset. This is something that Carol Dweck wrote about, who was an educator and an education researcher, and she writes about how students do so much better when they are in a growth mindset. And a growth mindset is one of seeing your growth. It's one of recognizing that just because you're not 100% perfect, or just because you're not all the way there yet, you are still encouraging yourself, and you are still being encouraged by the people around you that you are on your way, that you are still doing good enough. I actually did a study with a small group of my friends, or, peers, I guess, in college, where we looked at avoidant versus attachment oriented mindsets. And this is a similar concept. We actually proved significant results in this study. And so every time they got a wrong answer, we showed them a flashing red screen, not flashing, but we flashed a red screen on the computer game that they were playing, saying that that was the wrong answer, blah, blah, blah. And they would go on to the next question, and they would make more simple mistakes because they were being reinforced that they were wrong, even if it was just once. The opposite group that we had, and of course we also had a control group, but the opposite group, they were told every time they got a answer right with a green screen. And so not only were we using color to program their minds, or to kind of reflect what those energies mean, but them constantly being told that they got something right pushed them to get more right answers, but also it made them feel sick. We surveyed them afterwards, and they felt significantly more confident in their answers and in their choices, even if they got more incorrect answers than the red group. But the red group constantly being told that they were wrong, that they were being reinforced, and it was a whole show of what they'd done wrong. That was where they lost confidence. So even if they got more correct answers than someone else, they felt worse about it. I did not plan on shouting out a study that I conducted, but that was actually really cool to be able to do. And it is exactly what we studied. And it's so fascinating because that is exactly the situation between a growth and a fixed mindset, right? A fixed mindset will be, if I am not 100% successful, then I am completely wrong. Then I am a failure. Then I am no good. Then I don't even deserve success. And that's where self-worth comes in, and how self-worth gets tied into this entire mess of black and white thinking, because it now codifies everything in this emotional landscape of not just this black and white robotic thinking of, okay, I am not good enough, blah blah blah, but then our human brains create this entire emotional story about how we don't deserve that success, how we're not good enough to have that success because we do not believe we are good enough, period. And so now it's not about achieving something on a base level, but it's about not being worthy of having that thing, even if we could achieve it. And going back to the goal, what is it that we actually want to have? What is the goal instead? Is, first of all, we're not going to be perfect, right? That's the whole point of this. So anytime that all or nothing mindset comes up, or that black and white thinking starts to surface, letting it go, letting ourselves recognize that it is not true, that it's not something we choose to believe, and that we are just going to let that thought pass us by. And if you feel like you're still struggling with being able to do that, self-worth coaching truly is for you, because this is where we untangle all of the thought loops that you've had for years that are keeping you so stuck and so stagnant, right? That's where we do that work, and we're not focused on anyone else but you. So if you really feel like, but how do I do that? Self-worth coaching is for you. But Outside of that, right? So we're letting the thoughts go that do come up that are aligned with this black or white mindset. But on top of that, what we really want to have is to create a new system of thoughts that we can believe, where we are saying, okay, I made a mistake. Like maybe that was really embarrassing. Maybe that kind of sucked. Maybe we're going to laugh about it later, or maybe we're going to keep that story with us till the grave. Whatever the situation is, that does not say anything about what you deserve. It is not saying anything about what you are truly capable of. Like, giving ourselves space to have nuance allows us to say, okay, well, yeah, that wasn't perfect, but I'm going to try again. And again, that feeling of trying again is rooted in the belief that you deserve the end goal. You deserve the thing that you're working for, because of course you do. Of course you deserve it. Right? That's not even a question. So that self-worth piece is so huge, and shattering your black and white mindset will ultimately elevate your self-worth, because you are breaking off and cutting off any sort of like lifeline or energy supply or blood supply to this thought that you are not good enough and that you do not deserve things. So with that thought shattered and that connection severed, now it's just about the present moment. Now it's not about deserving something or not deserving something. It is about, what do you have in this moment? And in this moment, you made a mistake. Maybe you said something you shouldn't have. Maybe you made a mistake at work. Maybe you are not proud of how you handled a certain situation. Okay. So if it involves someone else, then you apologize. You say, look, I freaked out. This is what I actually meant. I'm so sorry. Like, and maybe you don't have to explain what you actually meant. Obviously, it depends on the situation. But saying that you're sorry, saying that you recognize where you messed up and that you are going to do better, and maybe you ask for help to be aware of it. Maybe you ask for more clear communication. Maybe you figure out what triggered you, if there was a trigger for you, and communicate what that is. But that is growth, and that is the goal, right? The goal is not to be perfect, because again, wanting to be perfect or wanting to eradicate any bad thoughts or wanting to only think beautiful thoughts or whatever like weird spiritual bypassy thing people want to say, that is still black and white thinking. That is still saying, I have to be perfect. I have to meet all my health goals. I have to have my body goals. I have to do blah, blah, blah in order to be good enough, in order to be on my wellness journey, in order to honor my healing journey. No, you do not. And this is a little bit of a side tangent, but I have spent almost a year, I've spent all of 2025 and honestly a little bit of the last, I've actually spent probably about a year now, if not 11 months, off of social media. And this is something that I have noticed really, really reinforced my all or nothing mindset when I was scrolling on TikTok all the time. Now, I still use social media. I still catch myself scrolling. I'm not perfect, but I have gotten off of TikTok. And part of the reason why is because other social media sites are a lot more boring and they're a lot less addicting to scroll on. Even if I'm scrolling for a while, or even if I lose track of time, I'm not hooked in the same way that TikTok had me. I'm not going to sit there for two and a half hours like I did on TikTok. I might lose half an hour and not feel great about it, but it's not the same. And so I want to say that. But I noticed that, especially because of the For You page and TikTok constantly shoving new things in your face and you having less of a choice around what it is that you're seeing if you're not being like really strictly intentional about it, I noticed that I would feel such a proclivity towards perfectionism, and perfectionism is something else that enhances or is connected to an all or nothing mindset, right? Because you have to be perfect or you are not good enough. That is the dichotomy. And those are the way, that's the way that your brain filters your experience, is I'm either perfect or I'm not, right? And again, perfectionism is also rooted in shame. So that's how shame plays a role in connecting all of these stories. Being on social media made it feel like there is one right way to do things. I have to be in this aesthetic. My house has to look like this. My relationship has to look like this. I have to make these kinds of decisions. I have to do this or I'm not a girl's girl. I have to have friendships that look like this. Like whatever, like there's a million and one stories in a million different directions. I was even having this conversation with my partner the other day because he sent me a story on Instagram, I think, and it was like this woman talking about how she was in a relationship for 3.5 years, and she moved across, like at the height of her career, she moved across the country to, support her partner in his career. And then he suddenly dumped her when she had like nothing left in her life, like no friends, no community, wasn't at the height of her career anymore, had to sacrifice so much for this person, and then was left with nothing. And my partner sent me this story and we were talking about it. Like, that is so crazy. I feel so bad for this woman. And I realized, like, I was like, I've started to be a lot nicer to you this year, haven't I? And he was like, yeah, you really have. And I was like, when I was on TikTok, I was seeing like 5 stories like that a day. And I wouldn't even choose. I was never on like cheating husband TikTok. Like, I never once searched that. But half of my For You page was, women being like, not half, but like a good amount of it was women being cheated on, like betrayal from boyfriends and husbands, and like these crazy horror, like even during Scandival, being on TikTok for that, like it just went on and on and on with all this stuff that I didn't ask for, that put these insecurities in my head, that made me feel a certain way about things and about people in my life. So if you've noticed yourself like scrolling more than you would like to, or just like noticing this like uprise in black and white thoughts that you thought maybe you were past and now they're coming back to you, be aware of like your social media intake, or just the influences that you are taking in, whether it's online somewhere, in real life, like things that you're watching on TV, whatever it is. All those things really do influence how we see the world. And being offline also put me not in such a hive mind of like I didn't know about the Labubu thing until like maybe a couple weeks ago. And like even then I was just like, what is going on? Like, all these weird trends and all these weird like micro trend cycles and this overconsumption and just all this stuff, it makes you feel like everyone has this, everyone is doing this, everyone has the perfect apartment, everyone has the perfect decor, everyone has the perfect husband, or like the most awful human being as a partner. Like, it's one or the other. And so all of these stories and all of this content is created to get an emotional reaction out of you. So like I said before, there is this kind of like logic, quote unquote, logic minded thought. We think it's logic, right? This black or white mindset. But what it actually is it's coded in this emotional layer, which again, like I said before, is where that self-worth piece comes in. In social media, it reinforces like the thoughts on one spectrum and then the thoughts on the other end of the spectrum. And it's like you're either one or the other. There's no room for nuance online, and even in online conversations and this and that, like whataboutism and all of that stuff. It's like pulling in things that don't even make sense. There is such a big connection there. And that's something that I also didn't really think about until I pulled myself out of that situation. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm nicer to my partner now. I'm nicer to myself now. I'm nicer to my apartment now, because I'm not constantly judging it for being ugly and not good enough. Like, as if it doesn't keep me safe every night, and if it's not an incredible privilege to live in a safe, loving home. Like every black sheep knows that, but social media and even this shame and capitalism and this black or white thinking, it keeps us all so ungrateful, and it keeps us all so one-track minded and rooted again in this shame and feeling not good enough. So that's what was on my mind, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Again, I'm going to have tarot readings up on my YouTube channel. Let me know if you want them on the podcast as well. I am also going to be releasing something so exciting. I might do a separate episode on what I'm releasing, but I have created officially a middle ground between my free content and a one-on-one session. So if you are like, I love your content, I want more, I want to know more about how to start healing this like black sheep experience and this self-worth stuff, but like I don't want to do a one-on-one session, and sometimes it feels like you're being a little too seen in one-on-one sessions. Or maybe it's just not the way that you like to do your healing work. Maybe you're just like not into it. Maybe they're too expensive. Whatever the reason is, I realized like even in my offerings, it was a little bit all or nothing. It was like you either get a bunch of free content or you have like these couple of services that you can choose from. And for so long I've been brewing on this, like, what do I want to create? What is it? And I've taken quite a bit of time and have finally release this project. And that's a big reason why I kind of went silent on the podcast over the summer. I had a lot going on, and Black Sheep Experience has been doing really, really well. And I'm so grateful for that. But I was working on this project behind the scenes. And so what it is it's an online course. It has teachings on like the fundamental reasons why your Black Sheep Experience creates self-worth wounds, what those wounds are, and then it gives you and it teaches you like about the connection behind them, about like where these self-worth wounds come up, how to heal through them, like what caused them. And then in that teaching section, I also talk about certain journal prompts that I included in a workbook that I made for you guys. So this is like I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. I think it's like 20 pages, maybe a little more, of a workbook with like these simple direct prompts that relate to each of like the different areas that I talk about in the video. So you can do your own work and start bringing in your experience, but it's not all rooted in the past, right? A lot of it is about like coming into your power now and finding those like holes in your experience, in your aura, in how you move through your day-to-day life that are keeping you stagnant and that are leaking out your power. We are finding those, we are examining them, and we are fixing that shit so that you can be in your power now. So it's not all about like focusing on the past and like being sad and like revisiting all this stuff. Like, let's talk about now. Let's talk about you now. And yes, some of this is obviously going to reflect on our past and our past experiences, but like there's also so much more that we need to be talking about that affects us now. So that's part of it. And then I created body work. So I have a whole EFT like tap with me routine that is so good. You will see a clear difference in my energy from how I was at the beginning of the video to the end of the video. And if that happened for me, I know it'll happen for you too. It just brought me back into my body. We talked through all of these like we just did EFT. We did a really, really good EFT session. And not only do you get that video and that experience of tapping along with me, it comes with captions. I teach you how to tap. I'm doing it with you so you can follow along with me. Not only that, but I also wrote up another page of self-worth affirmations that are different than what I did in the video so that you can create your own EFT tapping routines. And whether you use those exact affirmations to a T, whether you use them as a jumping off point to create your own routine or just kind of throw some in here or there with your own affirmations, that is going to be such a helpful tool for you to start using EFT again in your own practice and to do it in a way that's more personal to you, that isn't just the video. But of course, you can always return to the video, right? So that's the third piece of the workshop. And then the fourth piece is a full like hour-long somatic practice. And the coolest part about this somatic practice is that it's actually very low energy. It's very restorative. It's almost more akin to like yin yoga. Like it's not a yoga routine. It's not a yoga session, but the idea of like doing one move or doing one step for like a long period of time, really giving your body time to acclimate, regulating your nervous system, it being something that you can return to over and over again. This isn't like a hype you up, like, yes, like, let's go, breath of fire, Kundalini. Like, it's not all of that, right? And there's nothing wrong with those things, but I intentionally chose a very slow moving somatic session because we are exhausted. We are burnt out, we are overworked, we are tired, we have been fighting, we have been struggling. Like 2025 is not an easy year for anybody. I'm 90% sure that when you sit down to do this somatic exercise, you are going to be in a state of dysregulation. I am like, I constantly have to come back to trying to regulate my nervous system and then it gets dysregulated. And that's just what being a human, especially now, is like. So that's why I created a very slow moving somatic practice that's also very forgiving, right? This is available to all abilities. I talked about modifications and different points of accessibility throughout the somatic session. Again, I'm not perfect. I'm not a nurse or a physical therapist, like I say in the video, but I do my best and I want it to be something that anyone with any body or any limitation can connect with and can resonate with and get a lot out of. So that is the whole course. I am selling it for only $50. So that is such a bargain. It's like 4 hours worth of content, a workbook, so many options for you to personalize it, so many things for you to return to. It's not just something that you can watch and then you'll be done with forever. I built especially the EFT and the somatic session to be something that you can return to over and over again. So this is going to be all about those self-worth fundamentals. It's a blueprint for black sheep and cycle breakers. It is the thing. Like, it is the thing. It is something that I am so proud of, that I've been working on for a while now. And it just came straight from my heart. It did not come from a strategy or a strategy session. Like, it was channeled through my soul. And it is something that I'm so passionate about and that I really want you to experience. So details on that and the Bye Bye Binary Thinking workbook are going to be in the show notes. The Black and White Thinking workbook, Bye Bye Binary Thinking, is free. So that is completely free for you to try at any time. So I will link both of those below. I love you so freaking much. I am so excited to be back, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode. And remember that you are worthy whether you believe it or not.
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Becoming Enough. Be sure to rate and leave a review of the podcast so that other Black Sheep and Cycle Breakers like you can find us too. Visit blacksheepexperience.com to learn more about how we can work together to elevate your self-worth and eradicate your worthiness wounds for good. Remember that you are worthy whether you believe it or not. I love you so much. Happy healing.